Good evening. I'd like to call to order the regular city council meeting. The time is 9:07 p.m. The date is December 6th. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Mayor Ronnie Felder.
Here.
Chairperson Douglas Lawson.
Here.
Chair Pro Tem Shirley Lanier. Councilperson Charles McCoy.
Here.
Councilperson Kashama Miller Anderson.
Present.
Councilperson Julia Botel.
Here.
City Manager Jonathan Evans.
Present.
Deborah Hall McCullen, Acting City Clerk, is present. City Attorney Don Nguyen.
Here.
You may proceed, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And can we have a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Mayor Felder? So I know it's a late hour because even with that pledge, I could tell it's 9:07, guys. So do we have any additions, deletions, or substitutions to the agenda?
None from staff, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, could we consider moving item 11A to consent? Is that the right? Wait,
11.
Let me open it up. I'm not sure.
I believe
Yeah.
11A is the resolution. Yes. Do we have any recommendation? Councilman McCoy?
Well, I like the idea of moving it to consent, but I am going to pull it off of consent. So let's actually put it on consent first, and then I'm gonna pull it off just because I have just one thing I want to say. So I don't really need a presentation. So if we can put it on consent, I just want to pull it off to just go on record on my vote.
Doesn't make any sense.
Thank you. Additional comments? Additions, deletions? Disclosures from the board?
Oh, Mr. Chair,
Councilman
I
Botel.
did have a meeting with somebody from Thermo King earlier this week or last week.
I'm sorry.
I had a meeting on the Thermo King
Oh,
topic.
okay. Thank you. Additional disclosures? Motion to adopt agenda?
So moved.
Motion been made and properly seconded. Madam Clerk?
Councilperson McCoy.
Yes.
Councilperson Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Councilperson Botel.
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Lanier.
Yes.
Chair Lawson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Consent agenda. All items listed on this item are considered to be routine and action will be taken with one motion. There's no separate discussion of these items unless a council person so requests, in which the event, it'll be removed from general order of business and considered as general normal sequence on the agenda. Councilman McCoy?
Yes. Pull off 11A for real quick.
Thank you.
Just
Any additional
point of
requests?
clarification.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion been made and properly seconded. Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Botel. Councilperson Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy.
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Lanier.
Yes.
Chair Lawson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Thank you. So we will go ahead and take 11A for the point of clarification. Even though it's supposed to go to the original item, Councilman has already stated he just has a concern. So if we can go straight into 11A.
Resolution number 167-23, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, awarding RFP number 1092-23-3 to Arthur J. Gallagher Risk Management Services, Inc. of Boca Raton, Florida, to provide broker of record for property and liability insurance for the City of Riviera Beach for a combined average of 6.7% commission for a 3-year period with 2 one-year renewal options, authorizing the Director of Finance and Administrative Services to make payment from various city department accounts and providing an effective date.
The public comment cards.
Denise, do we have comment cards for this item? We don't have any public comment
Motion to
cards.
approve resolution number 167-23.
Motion been made and properly seconded. Mr. Evans?
Mr. Chair, it was previously stated that the councilperson did not wish to hear a presentation. If that's in fact the case, then staff can answer any questions or address any comments that are made.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Councilman McCoy?
Thank you. I just have one thing. I particularly looked at this process, and I don't. I have reservations about the committee and its establishment, and the selection seemed a bit subjective. And for that reason, I just looked at the scores, and I can't support this item for Arthur J. Gallagher. In fact, I thought, looking at the scores, there should have been, almost parity between the other respondents, but it wasn't. So I'm not going to support this item, and I appreciate staff's work on it, but there were some, I think, things that could be worked out better going forward, but I'm not going to be able to support it, Mr. Chair. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilman McCoy. Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Botel,
Yes.
Councilperson Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy,
Oh.
Chair Pro Tem Lanier,
Yes.
Chairperson Lawson.
Yes.
The item passes with Councilman McCoy dissenting.
Going into regular agenda, item 9A.
Item 9A, ordinance number 4245, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, creating City Code of Ordinances, Chapter 32, Art in Public Places, providing for purpose, conflict, severability, and codification, and providing for an effective date. Chair Lawson, we do not have any public comments for cards for this item. The acceptance of cards for this item is now closed.
Motion to approve ordinance number 4245.
Second.
Motion been made and properly seconded. Mr. Evans?
Mr. Chair and members of the board, if I can have the Director of Development Services, Mr. Clarence Sermons, to make this presentation.
Welcome, Mr. Sermons. Welcome, Ms. Graves.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, members of council, Honorable Mayor and Madam Attorney. Myself, again, Clarence Sermons, for the record, Director of Development Services. I am excited to be before you to present this item. It has been in the works for quite some time. So myself and I will allow her to introduce herself in a moment. The operations manager for the department will be jointly presenting this presentation related to art in public places for the city.
Thank you, Mr. Sermons. Do you want me to do that? Okay. Good evening, Mr. Chair, board members, City Manager Evans. My name is Grace Joyce. I'm the Operations Manager for Development Services.
We will be splitting this presentation, and we have been working on this for some time. There's a resolution that was passed within the last 2 years directing staff to bring forth an ordinance that would establish a art in public places program for the city of Riviera Beach. We have done extensive research on the comments that were provided to staff, but also on similar programs in the area. And we believe this captures what we believe was the intent of City Council. But as this is first reading, if there's anything that appears to have missed the mark that staff has developed here, we are anxious for your feedback on that. And without further ado, I will not reread the ordinance header, but I will describe the intent and purpose described in this ordinance. It is the intent and purpose of this chapter to further the commitment of the city to the aesthetic, economic, cultural, and historical enrichment of the community through the creation of works of art. So residents and visitors to the city of Riviera Beach are afforded an opportunity to benefit from the latent and direct impact art has on a community. The requirements of this chapter shall be construed to promote the aesthetic values of the entire community and to encourage the acquirement, preservation, and protection of works of art. So this ordinance establishes various things, the definitions for the program. It clarifies who is subject to the new ordinance. It creates the Public Art Advisory Board, establishes powers and duties and functions of said advisory board. It establishes the criteria for art, creates the public art fee, establishes the public art fund, and creates requirements for program participants. It creates provisions for unsolicited proposals, and finally provides a means for enforcement. With this presentation, as we get into the meat of it, we will start with the funding, which is one of the more important components of it. So I will yield the floor to Ms. Joyce for this section of the presentation.
Thank you, Director Servants. It's the intent of the ordinance to establish the Art in Public Places Fund by collecting dollars from public development So we're proposing a 1% construction cost of all new city facilities as well as major expansion go into the Public Art Fund. As it relates to private development, 1% of building permit fees for non-residential projects valued at $50,000 or more, or the developer could have the option to install an art of equivalent value on their property. We're also proposing something a little innovative, which is utilizing 1% of business tax receipt revenue to go into the fund, as well as allowing private donations for folks who want to support art in public places within the city of Riviera Beach. As it relates to the art in public places business tax revenue, the recommendation suggests utilizing 1% of business tax collected to seed the Art in Public Places program, to get it started, kick it off the ground. In the 2023 fiscal year, the city collected a little over $1.9 million in business tax receipts. If we were to utilize 1% of the business tax receipt dollars collected for the Art in Public Places program, we could establish the program with about $19,000. The Art in Public Places permit revenue, which is the traditional way most cities will fund an Art in Public Places program, we are also suggesting utilizing 1% of permit fees. And if we had started the program in 2023, this year we could have realized $580,000 to go into the fund.
One of the other primary functions that this ordinance would effectuate is the creation of an advisory board to guide the program. This would be an additional citizen advisory board that would make recommendations to city council. The board would have 7 persons and 2 alternates. Board members would be appointed by city council. The ordinance has a requirement that at least 3 members must have an artistic background. The board would be advisory in nature for all installations on private property and for city procurement of art from the Public Art Fund. The board would provide oversight and recommendations based on the Art in Public Places Master Plan. And then it has also a built-in contingency for any situations for a lack of quorum. The final component of this program would be the creation and adoption of a Art in Public Places Master Plan. The master plan would provide the vision, goals, and objectives of the program. The Public Art Advisory Board would review projects and private development based on the ordinance and guidance from the Public Art Master Plan. The plan would be developed using outside consultants and support this ordinance. So we have been working closely with the procurement department, and the RFQ for this for a firm to develop a Art in Public Places Master Plan is ready to go within the next few days. The table before you outlines the different municipalities around the state that staff has studied in detail to develop this ordinance. And we do believe what we are proposing for the city of Riviera Beach is consistent in many ways with the industry standards for existing art in public places programs. There are some variations in certain requirements and some thresholds, but we do believe we've establish a mark for what makes sense for the city of Riviera Beach.
Mr. Chair,
Council,
would you rather,
Councilwoman.
would you rather we wait until the end, or I have a question about this chart?
oh, no, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Could you please explain to me why private developers, I mean, my thinking about art in public places would be that private developers would, almost as a result of our passing this ordinance, be included. And yet there's so many here who are not. And I would guess that ours does include private developers, for one.
Ours does.
Okay.
And we actually spent extensive time researching this when it was raised prior to tonight. This column does indicate the requirement, yes or no, for private development to participate in the program. We have made some updates, and the majority of cities do require it. There are some that do not, and it varies. The success rate is much higher for these programs when it is a requirement. The city of North Miami is in red here because they have recently dissolved their program because there was not a private development requirement, and there just wasn't enough funds generated to make the program thrive. We spoke with persons for the city of Delray Beach, and they're revamping theirs because there's not a private development requirement there, and it has not manifested the expectations of the program. So there are a few that don't require it. Some utilize it as an incentive. So if you want bonus densities and things like that, this is one way to attain it through art in public places. So there were 2 cities that utilized that approach, but the majority of the most successful programs that you may be aware of or experience when you drive through their cities, they are required for the
Thank you.
development.
And I appreciate that you added Riviera Beach so I can make a comparison. Thank you.
Yes, no problem.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Go ahead, Ms. Simmons.
That actually was the end of the presentation. Staff
you.
does recommend that City Council approve this on first reading. But again, if there are any questions, comments, or concerns or tweaks that the board would like from the policy perspective on this, we are here and eager to hear that feedback.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, public comments?
There are no public comment cards for this item.
Thank you. Board members? Just wanted to make a, Councilman McCoy, go ahead.
Yes, so just curious. I like the fact that funds are created. I just want to make sure that there is the expectation of money staying in the fund. And I guess I'm looking at the definition here, and I don't know that actually says that this is purely restricted to art in public places. So if you look at the definitions, 32-7, specifically, it says the finance department will collect the fees from public art participants. The Public Art Advisory Board can recommend to the city council expenditures from the funds in furtherance of the art in public places program. So I take that to mean that they certainly have that in their prerogative, but that doesn't limit the city council. That doesn't limit city administration. So I think if it's the intent that all art in all funds that come through there has to be done and administered through that board, then I think that's probably what it should clearly state.
Which section under 32-7 were you reading from? I want to make sure I'm
B.
tracking the language.
Letter B.
Okay.
It just gives them the authority to make a recommendation. And I'm trying to understand, is it staff's position that all funds that's expended from this fund have to be approved by the board? Because if that's the case, that's not what it says here. And I think we may want to tighten that up if that's staff's recommendation. However, it says they can recommend. I mean, that doesn't exclude administration or the city council on their own. And, you know, me personally, I don't know if I like the whole idea of creating a new board. You know, if it's already an existing board that's going to have to review projects like the Planning and Zoning Board, create a function already within the existing ordinance. But I think creating another board in itself, for me, seems to create more bureaucracy. And that's another step in the process that a developer is going to have to go through. And I can tell you, I had somebody tell me they had to get a soffit replaced on a large-scale multifamily building, and the permit took 1.5 years alone. Now, if there's an art component, I would hate to see what that application looks like for new construction. We got to go through, you know, new construction goes through planning and zoning on top of site plan approval and permits, then now to the art board. Let's make it easy for me. I mean, if it's already going to P&Z, perhaps we can consolidate and make their, I mean, these guys, well, these fine volunteers are there twice a month. I think that's certainly to be commended, but I would like to see if that's something that we can kind of collapse into a function that's already, you know, encompassed by that board. And it probably makes more sense even now, considering we've expanded the convention of the board for more members, to consider collapsing that function under the planning and zoning board. But just to create another board, which creates another separate public meeting, I don't like that. I think we already get criticisms about the process taking long, and I don't want to hold up that, for the board if we already have one that's going to meet. But I think staff should just look back. If it's your intent to make it solely where only the actual board makes that, then the language needs to be fine-tuned. If there is the opportunity for the city council or administration, then I think it's fine. So that's what I would offer. And, so this is the question. Those were my recommendations. My question is, what's not clear from this is there is a portion that speaks of the 1% contribution. Is that in addition to the permit fees?
Yes, that's correct.
And there's no opt-out provision?
There are some exemptions that are written into the code, but it would be an additional fee, just like a building permit fee or an impact fee. And the fees are enumerated for contractors when they come in to submit for a permit, and this would be an additional fee that would be listed in there.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, there is one option that if they decided to the development decided to construct the art on site themselves, otherwise this would read as a new fee when they go for permit.
And then when they construct that art on site, it has to go through that proposal has to go through the board.
That's correct.
Ouch. I can't support that. I mean, I get a lot of calls about the process, and I think just doing it in an art board, the concept is great, but I just can't support another board because.
As far as the boards, we did have this conversation internally and with the planning and zoning board. It did come up potentially combining the responsibilities. We are not aware of any models that do that. This particular board, we believe, requires the expertise of those who work in the art field. A general volunteer, although, we have training and things like that for planning and zoning board members, but the industry of art, knowing the tradesmen, valuing art and things of that nature is really more of a specific background that is kind of hard to find. And for that reason, we removed the residency requirement for this volunteer board, whereas just about every other one in the city, you have to live here. So at least 3 persons must have that background to be on the Public Art Advisory Board. And we've, again, loosened restrictions because of that. We could look into what that would look like if we tried to maybe add some artisans for certain hearing types to the planning and zoning board. But again, based on our research, it is generally the responsibility of a separate body for this, because it is kind of a specialty type of item that they would be reviewing. But
Thank you, Mr. Sermons. In addition, I think one of the things that we worked on was trying to streamline what that system would be like, and it would be completely different from like someone going to planning board, because an application would be prepared with certain criteria that had to be met, information that needed to be included that was very specific to art and the valuation of art and how it would be maintained and so forth. And they would present to the board. And at that point, the board would make a recommendation as to whether or not they could support this form, whatever that may be, as being consistent with the ordinance. Then it would come before you guys to make the final decision. So it's not like it would be a time-consuming thing. It's one presentation. It's an application process that we check the boxes to make sure they've included everything. It goes to the board. It's a more informal process for the board to review for sufficiency with the code, and then it would come to you all to decide and vote that yes or no, that this is what the intent of this ordinance is, and it's consistent with that.
Well, actually, I disagree, because if you're saying there's a specific criteria, Ms. Nguyen, if I can have your support on this, if you're saying if it's a specific criteria that's going to be required, like an application, and they have to check all of these boxes, and then you're telling me simultaneously that you're going to have at least a board made up of three persons that has some sort of art specialty. If this is of that, in fact, it's very much a formal board and almost quasi-judicial in nature. If they're asked to do something that measures up to a specific criteria, that's the definition of quasi-judicial. They're measuring it against a standard. They're measuring against a criteria. So I really would believe that if you're setting forth a criteria first, then that makes it very much formal and very much driven by a set of standards, which is the functional equivalent of a quasi-judicial board. And again, we have, we already have delays in the process. It'd be my recommendation, and staff, you can take back and do what you want. I'll support it on first reading, but what happens if we don't have three people? I don't want anybody's project to be held up, because we don't have three people to serve on this board. And that, for me, just seems to be another layer of bureaucracy that if somebody wants to come in and build, they should be able to do that. And alternatively, the option to contribute to the fund is there, but I don't think someone should be, restricted by having to go before a board that, in theory, could not have enough participation.
And to that point, that is something that this ordinance contemplates. So again, we've studied a lot of cities who have successful programs. And what you have before you, if for whatever reason the board is not functioning, they can't get a quorum for 3 meetings or more, or there's membership that falls under 3 persons, that board can be suspended, and the Planning and Zoning Board would overtake the functions of the Public Art Advisory Board. And that is something that we discussed with the Planning and Zoning Board to help them understand what this ordinance would imply for their responsibilities. So we have considered that. It is, keep in mind, it is optional. The development could elect to cut the check for the 1% fee and move forward with their development process. If they would like to install it on their property themselves, then it is an additional application process. They have to procure an artist, show us what the art would be, make that presentation to the Art in Public Places Advisory Board. And that board would, similar to the Planning and Zoning Board, only make a recommendation to City Council. City Council would determine whether it is acceptable. So again, they are a recommending board. And just to circle back to one of your previous questions, the intent of this code is that the Public Art Advisory Board is strictly recommendation based. So any expenditures from the Public Art Fund, they would make a recommendation, and then it would come before this body. And based on the points you've raised, I've looked at some language such as the can recommend, and we can change that to shall if it is the desire of the board to make sure that it goes through that body of reviewers and the artisans that will be a part of that group before it goes to City Council. Just to make sure that there is a clear process there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman McCoy.
Yes. One more point Ms. Joyce brought up there. This process would not create a delay in permitting because they would not be required to submit their package for the art installation until within 30 days of the permit issuance. So they would have already submitted their permit and could conceivably have begun construction while we sort out the art that they have elected to put on site. Again, they always still have the option of just paying the fee up front and walking away from the art part, in which case the city deals with the art fund, and that board would be the one in charge of making sure that any expenditures out of it have been vetted by art professionals and are meeting the spirit of the Art in Public Places Master Plan, which would be a subsequent component of this program.
And thank you for clarifying that, Ms. Joyce, because the same sentiments that my colleague stated when we first presented this item, we've been able to address that, not delaying the process because we don't want to give any delays to our development community. Councilman McCoy, did you have any other concerns with that?
So thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, so I'm sorry,
No,
Councilman
just very
Botel,
quickly,
please.
I'm thrilled to support this ordinance. It feels like it's been years that we've been trying to get art in public places.
2008.
So I know it's been long in coming. It's very welcome. We know that public art just makes every place better, and I'm happy to support it. Thank you.
Councilman McCoy, go ahead.
Lastly, I really would encourage the members of this council to consider the Planning and Zoning Board. The reason is, I just thought about it. I've been serving on the Construction Oversight Review Committee since 2015, 2016 or 17. So was the sales surtax. The school district has had ISOC, the sales surtax committee, established since 2016. I know we've had a board and we've been collecting sales surtax dollars, which can only be expended once at the approval of the surtax board. They've never met. That's the problem I have with this. So, I don't want to create, this is just extra. And I'm telling you, the fine guys and ladies of that P&Z board meet twice a month. They're in here just as much as we are. So I think if you're going to do it, let's give them the stab at it and not even make it, some second, giving them the substitute role, because they're already working at it. And the Independent Sales Surtax Committee has never met, not once, not one time. Maybe an orientation meeting, but they've not met. And that's largely because we haven't expended the monies. But I don't want to create all these boards for people, in theory, literally forget that they're even a member and just stop coming or having interest in it. So if it's not broke, then why fix it? I think we can build on the committed and dedicated folks that we have. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilman. And thank you for addressing that. Mr. Sermons, how long have we been working on this policy?
I would say this initiative started about 4 years ago.
Okay.
The city's first ordinance proposing this was in 2008, which
2008,
failed.
right. So, and I remember when we came to this board, I actually remember I tricked my legislative aide into giving a presentation, did research right in front of this board, Javarius Jackson, and we talked about this policy, and the board had a lot of excitement. My colleague had some of the same sentiments that you were able to address in regards to the consistency of meeting with the board, the lack of being able to garnish or generate interest in the actual Arts and Public Places Board. So you've addressed that with the residency restriction being taken out. You've addressed if they don't meet 3 consistent months, then they would go over to the P&Z. So I actually like how it's written as is. The components that I would probably want to add would be, Ms. Joyce, you said if we would have started this policy, we would have generated $580,000. So this is to the point where we're appreciative it's finally here, but we've got to just start when we get these policies or we get these ordinances and that we decide to move forward with a resolution, we need to get them enacted. We need to bring them in because we could have already started off with $500,000 to beautify our community. So that's where once we set the initiative for staff, Mr. Evans, Mr. Sermons, we need to get these policies enacted. We addressed in the last meeting the parking ordinance that we're waiting on January to start. But I'm afraid to hear what it would have been if we would have started 4 years ago, what we generate per year. So Arts and Public Places would have had $580,000 sitting there right now to actually beautify our community. The mural costs a substantial amount of money that we have on our water tank right on the corner of Barak and Blue Heron. So these are the things that we can actually beautify. One of the things I want to see that we could possibly add and see if I get support from my colleagues is to put a percentage of it for creative dance, art classes, music, enhancement, programming, because the arts programming is one component. But I believe when Mr. Jackson presented it, that a percentage of the dollars actually goes into programming and art programming in addition to art installation. Because there's only but so much art that we can do. But if we're creating an entire program for these dollars that we're actually generating, it gives us an opportunity to really build out the Arts and Public Places component into it. So I'm supportive of an art board. I want to see if we can spark some interest from the community before we immediately jump over to P&Z. Because I know without the residency restriction, there's a lot of artists out there that would love to participate in beautifying. We're a blank canvas in Riviera Beach with so much development that's coming down the pipeline. So we would be able to rebuild an entire community or beautify an entire community that's already beautiful. So having the presence of having international artists and having participants on a board that's going to be building a blank canvas. I know residents and I know outside individuals would love to kind of paint this canvas for us.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Evans.
Really briefly, with respect to the ordinance, I think that the board at the time when this item was brought before you had reservations about the fee because there wasn't a lot of economic development that was occurring in the city, and the board was conscientious of not providing for undue burdens on the development community. And now we've seen the tides change, and obviously that's why that item's before you. But certainly to your point with regards to the arts and arts programming, it would be at least my recommendation that if that is provided for, it should be, to your point earlier today at the CRA meeting, monies that can be utilized for the arts within the community that are done by the private sector or to help facilitate and support events. Because what I'm concerned about is if there's a situation where it's utilized for programs, then it becomes too easy to supplant monies in Parks and Recreation or other departments' budgets for the purposes of, we've got this fund here that the developers are paying for, and now it's paying for dance classes or jazzercise in the Parks and Recreation department. And so if there is a desire to see it utilized for the arts, I think it can be utilized for art programming, art events, that we can utilize that for the purposes of sponsors, to assist the private sector or entities that are doing a dance studio or the performing arts, that is a mechanism that's utilized to fund that. So just from my perspective, I wouldn't want to see it in a situation where it can be utilized on the city side for programming, more so on the private sector.
And I actually could support that as well. If we could look into Boynton's policy and see what they're currently doing. And thank you, Mr. Evans, for that, because that policy, I believe that programming is a part of the private sector. So if we're taking a percentage, 20, 30% of the funds it's generating to assist with building out that arts program, I think we may want to identify that, see what Boynton is doing, because I know they have like a certain split of what goes into art installation and what goes into programming as well.
Mr. Chair, if I may
Mr. Sherman.
expound on that as well. With the language we have right now, it states that funds from the program can be used to create artwork which comply with the master plan. And I think that's key to make sure that we're capturing what the community council want to see in terms of art programming in the city. So when that exercise begins, again, as I said earlier, we would have a consulting firm that would develop the Art in Public Places master plan, and we could give these directives to them that we want to explore the performing arts component of things and see what other cities have done to make sure we're not blending our intentions with how the funds are used. But ultimately that Art in Public Places master plan would provide the documented vision of the city for that fund and what we want to see visually with arts in the city.
Perfect. And I think there was one thing, Mr. Evans, you stated that there was apprehension. I know there was apprehension because I remember that being clearly stated. But with the apprehension, I know that there was consensus and support across this board to bring some type of policy. So I don't want that apprehension or concern from the board to delay these ordinances from coming because you've addressed them. And it's finally here at the table. So I know everybody's excited. So thank you, Ms. Joyce, and Mr. Serms, and Mr. Evans for actually getting this policy done. Board members? Thank you. Oh,
I have a
Councilwoman-
question, Mr.
Councilwoman Lanier, then Councilwoman Anderson.
Just briefly, I like the idea of having a committee that reviews the art. People get PhDs in art, art historians, archivists, people who that's what they do every day. And I think that would serve us better to have someone who has that background in art, because then we'll know where to put it, how it looks, does it fit into the decor of where it is, and those kind of things that may get lost in translation for the Planning and Zoning Board. Not that they can't do it, but
Thank you, Councilwoman Lanier. Councilwoman Miller Anderson.
Somewhat along those same lines, I do think it's important that we have people that have that background because of, planning and zoning, as you just said, they do a lot of things, but I think having that specialty is important. But my only question is, with those who, I know it's probably limited on the amount of people that you may have that's interested in it, that may possibly live in the city, which is why you're saying you're opening it up to people who may not necessarily live in the city. But what I I don't want to happen is people who are not from the city or familiar with the city coming in with ideas that don't fit the city. And so I don't know if it's a matter of just having like maybe a majority of people that a majority of the board live in the city, or I just think it's important to be able to make sure that the identity is maintained, and that is basically because of people on the board know what their city's about. I don't want people from the outside coming in and saying, this is what you all need, when that's not what the community wants.
Understood. And the makeup of the board as described in the ordinance right now, of the 7 members, 3 of them must have an art background. The other 4 have to be residents of the city.
Okay.
And so we only suspended that residency requirement for 3 of the 7 seats.
Okay, just the 3. Okay.
Good. Yeah, that was my other concern that I wanted to follow up with. So
Yeah,
thank
but
you, Ms.
I
Robinson.
mean, obviously, if we have more that have that background, they would be highly recommended, I would assume. I mean, we may just well have Riviera Beach residents that have all of these backgrounds. And so I guess when the selection comes, how are we doing the selection? How's the selection happening for the board members? Are we appointing you all, or do we know yet?
Right now, what we've contemplated is a application process similar to the other citizen advisory boards that we have. And we would just line up those applications and present them to the board. As far as those with artistic backgrounds, since we started this 3 or so years ago, we have gotten interest from multiple people from outside of the city that work in this industry and are excited to work with Riviera Beach on the program. So we think with as far as finding volunteers with that technical background, we think we could put that together. But the minimum of 4 residents for the remainder of the board, we would follow a similar process where they provide a application, and staff would forward those recommendations those applications to the board for a vote. It would not be based on districts or recommendations from individual elected officials. We're not contemplating anything of that system.
So even for putting a preference of those who are in, if they're 4 for Riviera Beach, putting a higher preference on those that have an art background.
Yes, we would for
Okay.
this case, yes.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller Anderson. Board members? Again, Mr. Sermons, thank you. This is something that we've been working on, especially this board. So thank you for bringing these ordinances to the board and allowing for us just to continue to beautify our community. And Mr. Evans, thank you for you and your staff working on this. Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy,
Yes.
Councilperson Botel,
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Lanier,
Yes.
Chairperson Lawson,
Yes.
unanimous vote.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sermons. 9B. I'm sorry, actually, before we go into that, board members, it is 9:50. We have 3 additional items to review, 3 ordinances. Do we have a motion to extend the meeting?
Second.
Mr. Chair,
Madam Councilwoman,
could we please check with Mr. Sermons? Do we have 3 or 4 more?
did I say 3? I meant 4.
Could we
B,
please
C,
check to
D.
see, is there any possibility, is there an urgency to items numbers D and C, excuse me, D and E, or is that something we can put off? I mean, is there any reason we have to do those tonight?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Mr. Sermons.
Item 9D is related to the Florida Building Code, which does go into effect on January 1st. So we do want to be as timely as we can to pass this ordinance to adopt those associated amendments.
All right.
Are we time restricting the extension or just until the completion of the agenda? Completion agenda? All right, we have a motion was made and properly seconded. Madam Clerk?
Councilperson McCoy, Councilperson Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Councilperson Botel, Chair Pro Tem Lanier,
Yes.
Chairperson Lawson.
Yes.
Heard that, yes.
So colleagues, we do have public comment. Residents, we've gone past our time, so we are going to accept general public comment cards. And I'm going to read the statement. If you have a general public comment, please submit your card now. Madam Clerk, how many public comment cards do we have?
We have one public comment card.
Thank you. I
One
believe
on
Ms.
the
Polk
way.
is on the way. Public comment shall begin at 7:30 unless there's no further business of the city council, which in the event it shall begin sooner. In the event that is considered at 7:30, then comments from the public shall begin immediately following that item. The board has developed rules of decorum. Please govern yourselves accordingly. Madam Clerk.
Margaret Shepherd, followed by Doretta Polk.
Margaret Shepherd, Riviera Beach, to the chair and to our illustrious mayor and to all of you in respective places. Once again, Ms. Lanier, thank you for looking out for the residents, whether we like it or not or whatever. You're doing your job. Everybody can't think the same way. So I want to publicly say thank you. And I want to go on as I look at our deputy clerk. I want to say thank you for picking up the slack and moving us on. Sometimes God works in mysterious ways. And I want to just thank you. And it came to my mind as I was reading volume 4. It is a very educational. And I'm here to tell you that you all need to purchase some of those books and put them in the public library. Because I've been here over 45 years. When I came, I absolutely didn't know nothing. I didn't know who people was, but I started educating myself and finding who was doing what, how was doing what, and then just talking to the people. It gave me the opportunity to know how people think, how they feel. It gave me the opportunity, I have that power now to speak in their behalf, but it's important. It's just important that you know who you are. I think she sent me a little text about Ivory Mack, and I text her back, and I say, Ivory Mack and John Green. Then I put in a Ivory Green. That was the scenario. I did not know that, but that's the tidbit of information that the public need to know. She is our historian, and we should honor her as a historian to do 4 books. If you read those books, it takes time to read through. Some people in those books, I heard the name, but I did not know who they were. But as I read the books, my mind go back. And when I approach people, I start telling them who I was, who my family was, then we connect. I could just hear a name. I think your secretary, when she told me her name and I began to tell who Claire was. And she said she immediately knows that Claire and her family was very, very close. So that made me very comfortable with her to know that she's a part of my family. And it's just an exceptional feeling to know that people come to you and they tell you certain things. You have an opportunity to put it on the table, whether you believe it or not or feel it or not. It's just important. It's important to listen to the people. These are the people that put you in office. And if nothing else, you owe them the respect. And I think we owe the respect. But sometimes we can't respect you because you don't respect us. I think our opinions are very, very important. And I want to thank this board. I want to say I appreciate you. I know that when I talk to some of you all, you understand. I don't hold you on the phone because I believe one thing, you are listening. Thank you again, Ms. Miller Anderson, for your kindness.
Thank you, Ms. Shepherd.
Doretta Polk.
Welcome, Ms. Polk.
Good evening. My name is Doretta Polk, and I'm a resident of Riviera Beach. And I just want to commend Pro-Chair Shirley Lanier. She had a phenomenal World's Day of AIDS event here at the marina. It was absolutely educational and very much a lot of literature, a lot of also products given to us. And I've also shared it with the neighbors and out in the community. She had Genesis, she had Vita Nova, Found Care, Dedicated, and the Palm Beach County Community Service, and probably a couple of other agencies that she had. It was absolutely wonderful, and we definitely need that. And thank you for all that you do for us in the city of Riviera Beach. And I want to also thank Mr. Sermon and also Mr. Michael Grimm. The situation that I had with AT&T, I was very disturbed concerning that. But I called Mr. Sermon, and he immediately sent out Mr. Michael Graham. It was absolutely wonderful. He explained the situation, what was going on, and I got clarity. And I also got clarity from Mr. Scott Evans, too, concerning the situation. And I want to commend also Mr. Sherman, who's over the financial department, and Mr. Walter Stevens. It is to have these type of employees here in the city of Riviera Beach. Mr. Evans is absolutely wonderful. Wonderful. They're very courteous, very professional, and very, very kind. And I want to also, there's another young man, Mr. Cedric Clark. There was an issue that some of our neighbors had with markings and stuff, and he explained a lot in detail what different, the colorings of different, when they're marking, means and everything like that. And it's absolutely wonderful. And I would like to know, Mr. Evans, how long will it be that we can have back channel 18 and channel 99? That's AT&T for me. How long do you think that process can be so we can have that running for myself and all the other citizens of Riviera Beach? And I thank you all that sit on this board. And I really appreciate each and every one of you. And thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Pope. Madam Clerk, 9B.
9B, ordinance number 4258, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, approving a small-scale future land use FLU map amendment to the City of Riviera Beach Comprehensive Plan, approving an application LU-23-0003 from Thermo King of the Southeast Palm Beach, located at 6870 and 6900 North Military Trail. Property control numbers 5642423622 0000010 and 5642423600001050 on approximately plus or minus 3.44 acres, plus or minus 149,846.4 square feet, requesting a land use designation from commercial COM to a land use designation of industrial IND, and providing, providing for an effective date and for other purposes.
So move.
Second.
Motion been made and properly seconded. Board members, I believe 9B and 9C are going to be relative to the discussion. Mr. Sermons. will you
Mr.
be-
Chair, my apologies, Mr. Chair. We do have one public comment card for this item. The acceptance of the cards is not closed.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Sermons, did you create one presentation for both items?
Yes, I did.
Board, if it's okay for Mr. Sermons to do the one presentation, we will still vote individually.
Yes, is it just those two, or is it three of them? Is just those two?
Two.
Okay, very good.
Mr. Sermons, please go ahead. Mr. Evans, if that's okay. Thank you, sir. Mr. Sermons, please.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will streamline this presentation as it combines both of the next two items. The header has been read into the record already. I won't repeat it. And before I use the header for the associated item for a zone change. The location of the project for the subject ordinance right now is indicated by the red dot on your screen on Military Trail. The image on the screen now shows a closer view from the air of the properties in question. This is a view looking north to the property from Military Trail. This is a view looking south to the property from Military Trail. The applicant here is requesting approval of a land use amendment, a rezoning, site plan, and plat approval to allow for an addition to their existing auto service operation. The existing conditions are existing building housing a motor vehicle service operation. The parcels are shown on the screen before you. The property is approximately 3.41 acres. The zoning is general commercial, and the future land use is commercial. The image on the screen before you shows the existing future land use. The area in red is the existing operation zone commercial. With the future land use designation of commercial. To the north, the newly acquired property by the applicant is currently under a industrial future land use designation. The proposal is to rezone the portion to the south to industrial. Similarly, for the existing zoning, it's all currently zoned commercial. It would move to industrial with the ordinances under your consideration tonight. The project has been reviewed by city staff and outside professionals. Staff has reviewed this rezoning and future land use request against the 8 rezoning standards. We have also reviewed this application against the city's, the proposed land use amendment and rezoning IG is compatible with the properties to the north, east, and west of this existing development. This hearing was properly noticed by, according to state law and city regulations. Staff has received 1 communication from the community regarding this project. We did receive a letter of support for this project from Cheney Brothers. There was no correspondence received by staff for opposition from this project. Staff recommends that City Council approve this application without conditions. And that concludes the staff presentation on this item. The applicant is here and prepared to present if it is the desire of the board.
Thank you, Mr. Sermons. Madam Clerk, public comment cards?
Warren Newell.
Good evening. It's always a pleasure to be here in the city and see all my good friends in council. I'm just here for the Cheney Brothers, of course, to support the petition. I sent a letter in already, obviously, but Thermo King has been a partner with us for decades, servicing our trucks. You usually see our trucks in the parking lot. We hope not to have many trucks here because that means they're broken down, but and that means more business for Thermo King. But it's a partnership. They've been established a long time. They're providing a service to the community with good jobs, good pay applications, good employment to the area, but also stability with tax base and to the community. And I just want to, again, state that it's critical for Cheney to have these kind of businesses very close in the same neighborhood because it helps us. And of course, as we grow, they grow. And I'm just glad to be here supporting it. And I appreciate a positive vote tonight. Thank
If
you.
you could state your name for the record, please.
If you want any questions, but I hope you don't have any questions, right?
If you could state your name for the record.
Oh, I'm sorry. Warren Newell.
Thank you, Mr. Newell. And thank
Thank
you
you.
for your comments tonight.
You too.
Yes, sir. Additional comments, Madam Clerk?
There are no other public comment cards, Chair Lawson.
Thank you. Council members? Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilperson Botel?
Yes.
Councilperson Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy?
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Lanier?
Yes.
Chairperson Lawson?
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Thank you. 9C.
Item 9C, ordinance 4249, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, improving an application ZA-23-0004 from Thermo King of the Southeast Palm Beach, requesting a zoning map amendment from a CG Commercial General Zoning District designation to an IG Industrial General Zoning District designation located at 6870 and 6900 North Military Trail. Property control numbers 5642423622 000 0010 and 5642423600 0001050, and providing for an effective date and for other purposes.
So moved.
Motion, second.
Motion been made and properly seconded. Mr. Evans?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, if I could have the Director of Development Services, Mr. Clarence Sermons, to make this presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Mr. Chair, staff does not have an additional presentation for this item.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, we do not have any public comment cards for this item.
Council members? Thank you. And thank you for investing into the community. Congratulations, and we look forward to continue to build a relationship. So thank you for everything. Madam Clerk?
Councilperson McCoy?
Mr. Chair, not so fast. They got 2 readings, so don't congratulate them yet. When they come back next time, it may change. So for now, it's a yes.
Whoa. Council, Madam Clerk, go ahead.
Okay, that was your vote, yes?
That was a yes.
Okay.
For now.
Okay. Councilperson Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Councilperson Botel?
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Lanier?
Yes.
Chairperson Lawson?
Yes.
That's a unanimous vote.
Thank you. Thank you. Madam Clerk?
We're on item 9D, ordinance number 4252, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, amending Chapter 22 of the city's Code of Ordinances entitled Buildings and Building Regulations, Article 2, Building and Technical Codes, Section 2122-31, Building Code adopted by adopting by reference a new administrative code entitled Riviera Beach Amendments to the Florida Building Code, 8th edition, 2023, providing for conflicts, severability, and codification, and providing for an effective date. Chair Lawson, we do not have any public comment cards for this item. The acceptance of cards is now closed.
Motion to approve ordinance number 4252.
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Evans?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, if I could have the Director of Development Services to make this presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Again, Mr. Chair, members of council, I am Clarence Sermons, Director of Development Services for the City of Riviera Beach. However, for this presentation, I will be deferring to City Building Official Michael Grimm, who is also the reigning building official of the year for the Building Official Association of Palm Beach County. So we are glad to have him a part of the team, and he will be giving you a presentation similarly to what took place 3 years ago when we adopted the last version of the Florida Building Code, which will go in effect on January 1st. Mr. Grimm?
Thank you for that introduction. Good evening, Council, Mayor. This ordinance we will be doing every 3 years because the state of Florida, every 3 years, they promulgate a new Florida building code. And
Hold on,
that
Mr.
has,
Grimm, I apologize. If we could just silence our phones, please?
sounds not,
No, I was talking about the residents. You're okay, Mr. Grimm.
okay, sorry.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So every 3 years, when the state adopts the new version of the code, it has the effect of wiping out our previous amendments to the code. So every 3 years, we go back and adopt a new amendments to the code. Now, we don't amend the technical aspects of the code. That takes some extra steps to do that. Committees and financial impact on the industry. What we do is we amend the administrative section of the code, Chapter 1. In order to do that, the state makes Chapter 1, then the Building Officials Association of Florida takes it, they amend it, then they give it to the Palm Beach County Building Code Advisory Board, they amend it and adopt it, and then they recommend that all the cities, Riviera Beach then takes it, we amend it to conform to our operational standards. So it has the effect of getting everybody to administer the code as uniformly as possible.
Mr. Chair.
Councilman McCoy, go ahead.
Thank you, and maybe I can help move this along. It just seems like we're just adopting the newest version. That's all that we're doing, correct?
It's the newest version, has a few amendments in it. It's very minor. They did, of note, they did include.
I reclaim my time, Mr. Grimm, but I'm looking at the ordinance. All it says is we're striking the 7th, we're adopting the 8th, we're striking 2020, and we're accepting 2023. So whatever is actually in the actual building code is where the changes are, correct?
Well, there are quite a few changes, and I provided a document, a clean version, and then a version that shows all the highlighted changes of the different years and the different agencies, what they changed.
Right,
It's
but-
not significant.
Right, but what I'm saying to you is what we're voting on, we're not amending. We're accepting everything that's in the 8th version, correct?
We have the Building Officials Association amended the Florida Building Code, the BCAB amended it further, and we amended it even further. So we are amending the Florida Building Code here by reference. We adopt it by reference. So it's a 58-page document that we're adopting by reference.
Yeah, and again, to clarify further, that chapter 1 of the Florida Building Code is the only component of it that has amendments that we're adopting. The rest of it automatically goes in effect on January 1st. But if we want to amend the local administration aspects of it, we have to do that through ordinance, which is what's before you right now. And chapter 1 has multiple edits from different levels of government, including some at the Riviera Beach level.
Right. So let me see if I can put it this way. The changes to chapter 1 is not encompassed in this actual ordinance, only by reference.
Correct.
Okay. All right, got you. So we would still have to turn to the building code if,
Comes our administrative section of the code, this 57-page document that's been provided. And I did provide one that shows all the changes, all
Okay.
highlighted, underlined,
I see
strike
it.
through. Yeah.
Got you. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Councilman McCoy. Go
The
ahead, Mr.
staff
Grimm.
recommends approval of ordinance 4252.
Thank you, Mr. Grimm. Madam Clerk, any public comments?
No public comment cards.
Thank you. Let the record reflect Councilwoman Lanier left the dais at 10:07. Board members? Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Botel,
Yes.
Councilperson Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy,
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Lanier,
Yes.
Chairperson Lawson.
Yes.
That is a unanimous vote.
Thank you. And let the record reflect Councilwoman Lanier returns. Thank you, Mr. Grimm.
Thank you.
Building Official of the Year, congratulations, and thank you for your work that you do for the city.
I'll have a few more days of that, I think.
Well, we'll honor you for those last few days.
No, for the rest of the year.
Congrats to Mr. Grimm, guys. We definitely honor you and thank you so much. So,
I thought you were leaving.
no, Madam Clerk, 9E.
Item 9E, ordinance 4253, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, amending Chapter 22 of the Code of Ordinances entitled Buildings and Building Regulations, Article 2 entitled Building and Technical Codes by updating and revising Section 22-33 entitled Schedule of Permit Fees, providing for severability, codification, and conflicts, and providing an effective date. Chair Lawson, we do not have any public comment cards for this item. The acceptance of public comment cards is now closed.
Motion to approve ordinance number 4253.
Second.
Motion been made and properly seconded. Mr. Evans?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, if I could have the Director of Development Services, Mr. Clarence Sermons, to make this presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Mr. Chair, again, this item before you is also associated with the city's administration of the Florida Building Code. The purpose of this particular ordinance is to change how we adopt and modify the fee schedule. If approved, this ordinance would adopt the building permit fee schedule as a standalone document by reference, as opposed to being codified in the ordinance. It would be consistent with how the city operates the majority of its other fee schedules. And myself and Building Official Grimm are here if there are any questions on this item.
Thank you. Council members?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Councilman McCoy, go ahead.
So this is more of a repeal. This is a repeal, and then codifying new language that it should be adopted by resolution.
We'll bring that on second reading. I do have a copy here.
I just want to know about this one,
Okay.
Mr. Grimm. So I guess it just seems to be a little more appropriate to reference appeal because we're eliminating fees set by ordinance. So we're repealing that, and we're now amending this chapter to say that going forward, fees will be done by resolution, correct?
Correct.
Okay, cool. Just seemingly, I would kind of believe the language needs to actually say repeal. But that's probably can be worked on afterwards. Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Board members? Madam Clerk?
Councilperson McCoy?
Yes.
Councilperson Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Councilperson Botel?
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Lanier?
Yes.
Chairperson Lawson?
Yes.
That's a unanimous vote.
Thank you, Mr.
And
Graham.
thank you
Mr.
again,
Simmons.
Mr. Sermon. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, of course.
Thank you again so much, Mr. Sermons, for your efficient work, and thank you, Mr. Grimm. And you told me that Mr. Grimm is the building official of the year?
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
congratulations. All right.
Once again.
Also on my staff is Marcella Foster, who is now the president of the Building Officials Association of Florida Palm Beach County chapter.
Oh,
And
wow.
Glenn Labonte, who is the president of the Electrical Inspectors Association currently.
Oh, wow.
So,
We're in good
we'll get
hands.
some
The
good
husband
recognition
of
out there of
Councilman
a
Miller
department
Anderson.
that's very
Thank-
professional and involved and
Thank you guys so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Sermons.
Embarrassment of
Appreciate it.
riches in terms of this staff. Thank you all,
Thank you
council.
so much.
Star-studded staff. We're honored to have every one of you working with the city, so thank you. Discussion deliberation, Mr. Evans.
Yes, Mr. Chair, just a couple of quick items. You have received an email from Ms. Desir with regards to a meeting that we would like to call the CRA to talk about the Marine Event Center. So if you can respond to that request, it is anticipated that that date would be the 31st of January for a workshop discussion with the board. That's the 5th Wednesday of the month. So if you can please provide her with your availability so we can go ahead and schedule that meeting. Also, I want to wish everyone in our community and all our employees happy holidays, and certainly we wish them all the best. And to that point, you heard about some of the outstanding employees we have in some of our departments. And Mr. Chair, if you wouldn't mind me indulging with your board, some of the conversation we had as part of the agenda review. The city of West Palm Beach has provided for their employees to receive the 26th of December off as a city holiday. And since Christmas falls on Monday, the only day that we're observing is the 25th. And so I had conversations with the board chair. And so one of the things we would like for the board to consider is if the board would be amenable to recognizing the 26th as a city holiday for your employees. The employees that would normally take that time off would not have to utilize the time, and then the employees that are working that day would receive holiday compensation. So they would also appreciate it. Those ones that are our first responders, utility district employees that have to work on the holidays. So that's a request for the board's consideration, and that concludes my comments, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. We have some discussion deliberation. Pro Tem Lanier?
Yeah, I would like Mr. Evans to give us an update on the negotiations and talks with the Riviera Beach Housing Authority. I know that we were supposed to come back in January, it's late, in January with a lot of this stuff taken care of. So give us an update now. And I think the Housing Authority is here too if they have any questions. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Mr. Evans, go ahead.
So staff has been working diligently to look to facilitate the transfer of the parcels that the board has received as a request from the Housing Authority. The properties that are within the Community Redevelopment Agency, as it relates to the statute, they have to be provided on notice. So there is a notice that those properties are available for the purposes of disposition of those assets. Also, I have drafted the letter that declares those properties as surplus, and so just having a final review of staff. So about, I think 11 of the parcels seem to be lining up as it relates to being able to surplus those particular parcels. We have a meeting tomorrow with our real estate attorney that's going to assist and make sure that we follow all the appropriate rules and regulation as it relates to the disposition of assets. So that occurs tomorrow, but staff has been working with the Housing Authority, and there's correspondence that are happening on a regular basis. the large tract of land, specifically the Alpha property, that property is going to require a little bit more time to review because the dry detention area that's there, the depressed area that you see, city staff has to look at that because if we do surplus that particular detention area, we have to be able to accommodate what the impact would be for stormwater runoff and the like. And so that property, and like I said originally, is probably going to take a little bit more time because there's some additional research that has to be done and probably some items that would have to be incorporated in the disposition of that the capacity that the city would lose as a result of the development of that site would have to be absorbed and contained elsewhere. And so there's a lot of engineering and calculation that have to be done on that, but everything seems to be lining up as it relates to the parcels. There's been, constant communications with regards to the city and the housing authority. And we do, I don't know if there's something on the calendar for this Thursday, but prior to that, we were having weekly conversations about what some of the deliverables are. So we're still working towards that January timeline. And so there also may be a situation where we ask for a meeting towards the end of January for the purposes of facilitating any legislative action that's contemplated to dispose of the assets and transfer those assets to the housing authority.
The notice you talked about, has it gone out yet?
Mr. Chair, if I may?
Ms. Evans, go ahead.
Yes, I believe so.
And what is the deadline? Is it 30 days, 60 days?
30 days. Has
30
to be out for
days.
30 days.
And the deadline is?
I'll have to send you exactly what date it was put out. But the housing authority does have a copy of that letter and when that letter was sent out.
Yeah, just let me know when that deadline is for
Okay.
that. So that we can continue to move forward with this item.
I did to that stormwater. So just for understanding and my edification, the stormwater would be something that we have to continue to. Wouldn't that be when we transfer the land? That'd be the concern of the housing authority. I'm not sure why that would be our issue right now.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Mhm.
that particular area provides exfiltration and stormwater treatment for the surrounding area. So invariably, if that area is filled and something is constructed, that capacity that dry detention area absorbs or has to be replaced. And so if we transfer that property, it may be a situation where the housing authority says, yes, we'll build underground storage capacity, or there's some type of alternative location that we look to construct to be able to do that. But that has to be replaced. And so that's things that the engineers are working on to be able to tell us what we can do or what needs to be done to help facilitate, a smooth disposition of that, because we don't want to create for an issue if that area is filled.
Any additional comments, council members, board members? Thank you, Mr. Evans.
I have committee reports.
Yes, let me get city attorney comments. Thank you, committee reports. Councilwoman Botel, go ahead.
On November 16th, I attended the Palm Beach North Chamber Economic Development Committee meeting. On the 16th to 19th, I, along with a couple of my colleagues, attended the National League of Cities Conference in Atlanta. On November 22nd, I attended the Palm Beach County League of Cities meeting, at which we were recognized. I won't read the whole proclamation here, but we were recognized for our participation in the Read for the Record project. We may not have won, but we made a very good effort, and I wanted to thank all of those of you who read to the children, especially our children's librarian and our librarian, who really did a yeoman's job of getting people organized to do that. On November 29th to December 1st, the Florida League of Cities Legislative Policy Committee met in Orlando. I serve on the Land Use and Economic Development Committee, and we did a lot of work around sovereign immunity as well as mobility plans. Today, I attended the District 1 lunch for the Palm Beach County League of Cities, and unfortunately, I have a League of Cities Legislative Action Days in Tallahassee on January 31st. I won't be back until late afternoon, early evening, so I won't be available on the 31st. And then I have councilperson comments. Shall I just continue, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Councilwoman Botel.
I was so pleased to attend the recruit graduation of Fire Station 88. It was wonderful to see so many young people who want to join the team and become one of our first responders. It was just a great opportunity. Yesterday, I attended the Palm Beach State of the Market event in West Palm and learned a lot about developments in the Palm Beach County real estate market. There was also a session on affordable housing that was quite interesting, run by a gentleman with whom Anita Jenkins and I have worked on the housing board. I want to make a statement that I would welcome people of all genders, races, nationalities, and ethnicities to establish businesses and residences in Riviera Beach, including Singer Island. If you need resources to establish yourselves, please contact my legislative aide, Mary Small, to assist you. She can be reached at 561-926-4442 or msmall@rivierabeach.org. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Pro Tem Lanier, any general comments?
Just generally, we're having, the city does this every year, providing unwrapped toys for kids up to the age of 13. We're going to be doing it this year at the farm, which is next to Barracuda Bay. Look out at the city's websites for information on how you register for these toys.
Thank you, Pro Tem Lanier. Ms. Miller Anderson?
Just want to say happy holidays to everyone, and Happy New Year.
Thank you, Councilman McCoy.
Same. And I said this in the last meeting, Madam Clerk, I need some accommodations because I'm having difficulties hearing. So I want to make sure that I put that on the record so that be heard. And I thought, was there not a request for us to vote on something? Okay, all right. Well, thank you. That's all I have. Happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
I forgot to say
Lanier.
Happy Kwanzaa as well.
Thank you, Councilwoman Lanier. Mayor Felder?
Yes, nothing, Chair.
Thank you. And I wanted to keep us here till 12 so we could celebrate Councilman McCoy's birthday. But since we won't be able to make it to that time, I'm going to wish my colleague a happy birthday. And also Councilwoman Botel as well is this week as well. So we're celebrating this entire board this week. Happy holidays to everyone. I will be having a Faith Meets Therapy mental health forum on December 11th. At 6 p.m. right here in the Marina. I'm honored that our honorable mayor will be sitting on the board to discuss faith and mental health therapy. So that'll be a discussion that we'll be having right here in the Marina. Mr. Evans, if you could try to get that shared on social media, or if you could get staff to get that sent out so the community can participate. And we're going to be having that right here in the Marina, talking about mental health and the combination of mental health and therapy. Colleagues, I'd love for you to attend. If there's no further business.
Hold on.
Councilman McCoy, go ahead.
Listen, to all of those people that's going to work the holidays, you see who tried to during the meeting, right? So I move that we accept City Manager Jonathan Evans' recommendation to making December 26th a city holiday for our employees.
Second. Councilwoman Miller says seconded.
Fourth,
Discussion?
So the mayor just said he forfs it. So
fifth, whatever. Sixth.
Madam Clerk.
Councilperson Botel?
Yes.
Councilperson Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy?
yes.
Chair Pro Tem Lanier?
Yes.
Chairperson Lawson?
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
No further
Well,
business.
they
Meeting-
coming for you, boy.
Meeting adjourned.